Hello and welcome to another version of the LOEWI podcast. This week we're doing it in English because we got Joline in the podcast. Joline, you work for DSM, Team DSM. Give our listeners an intro on what you do.
Yeah, thank you. My name is indeed Joline Versteegen. I'm working as a nutrition expert for Team DSM. Together with our team of nutrition experts, we aim to make the difference each day within our expertise. So aiming to improve the performance of our riders in the field of nutrition.
Give us an idea about Team DSM and where you sort of are positioned in a team. I understand, and I think all the listeners know that within a pro cycling team, nutrition is such a crucial fact because, you know, every little performance difference can make such a big impact for the entire team. So the operating human body at its absolute peak performance is so important, and therefore I guess your job is really important.
True. Yeah, so from the nutrition perspective, within Team DSM, we have a team of nutrition experts consisting of 4 sports dietitians, and in addition also a team of cooks who really work in the field in race situations. And us as the 4 nutrition experts, we really guide our riders on a daily basis. So from within our team of nutrition experts, we aim to improve the performance of our riders. Our team of nutrition experts consists of 4 sports dietitians, of which 2 colleagues very closely work together with our riders on the best possible performance-tailored nutrition. Yeah, really implementing our nutritional strategy into practice.
So how does your typical day look? Like you're saying, there's some cooks in the field, so I take it that you're not necessarily on the site during the races all the time.
Yeah, that is indeed correct. We have our team of cooks. They really they really go to the races. They cook for the riders on a personalized basis. And yeah, so their day is different every day actually. So they are on different places, different situations each day. And me and the other nutrition experts, we are based more in the Netherlands. So we also sometimes join the races, but we mainly work from our home base in Deventer, or at this moment, of course, from really home. Yeah, and a typical day is difficult because actually each day is different in this job. So, but of course, we work on guiding our athletes in all different situations. So in their home situation, in training situation, but also in race situations. And this also includes preparing race situations and working towards the personal development goals in the season, together with the riders and together with also the performance team and the other experts within Team DSM.
So you have direct contact with the riders and sort of tell them what to eat, what not to eat, and ideally in what time of the day to eat what.
Yeah, true. Within the 4 nutrition experts, we have some kind of divided our tasks a little bit. But my other 2 colleagues, they mainly work directly with the riders. They have contact with them on a very regular basis, mainly by calling them, but also face-to-face at moments in team camps, for example, or in race situations if they join the race situation for specific measurements, for example, or for other nutritional guidance. So in that way, we try to really interact with the riders, in a good way.
So since you have such a detailed look into the plan of the riders and what they're eating, etc., perhaps you can give us an idea of the diet regimen during a big tour race. Everyone knows the Tour de France, so I'll just use that as an example here. What would be sort of the typical breakfast, that someone starts off with during a race day? I take that fiber is a bit of an issue. I guess you need something that's quite nutritious but doesn't, cause any stomach issues because a lot of super high carb gels, etc., they can cause problems for a lot of people. So what is it that a lot of riders prefer? Is there something that people perhaps, rider A likes this, rider B likes that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in cycling, I think energy management is the main important factor. So energy management is like the basis of everything, especially in a sport like cycling. So managing that right is key and the basis of our nutritional approach. And then of course in race situations and especially in the Grand Tours, the riders, they do such an tremendous, enormous effort each day and day again. So their intake is really important and really a focus area, and that's why we also do personalized plates for many of the riders. So that makes them for them very easy, or not very easy because they have to eat a lot, which is not always easy, but at least they don't have to think about what they need to eat in order to have enough energy and in order to also recover as much as possible for the next day and make sure that they start again with enough energy on the next day. So yeah, their intake is really big. And for example, for breakfast, they eat like 150 grams of oats sometimes, together with a few slices of bread, together with eggs. And then still also they have another additional moment in between the breakfast and the start of the race, also as additional eating moment, pre-race snack. And well, then of course their intake during the race, we always aim to have an intake around 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour, which is already a challenge sometimes. We always try to make a combination of the isotonic drink, a bar or 2 bars, and in hectic moments 1 bar and a gel. And also of course depending on the weather, because if it's really warm you want to drink more, so then 2 isotonic drinks is preferred per hour. So that's, it's always a puzzle, and you have to make sure to look at all the different variables that are part of the day and the situation of that moment.
I guess the calories burned are quite easy to track thanks to power meter and heart rate sensor. So you get a very good estimate at the end of the day of how much calories are being burned and how much have to be replenished. So I guess you figure out an athlete relatively well after a few weeks of how much he needs every day. But what other sort of data do you track, and are you able to get? I guess we have definitely power, you've got heart rate. What about blood in terms of micronutrients, for example, which of course in our case is really, really interesting?
Yeah, so we indeed track as much as possible, but of course very specific for our nutritional intake. So yeah, we work with a prediction model also based on the past years, so historical data. And in addition to that, we track weather conditions, we track indeed the watts, so the amount of energy, the power they used, the time they used for cycling, so yeah, the time between start and finish. Yeah, and of course we have personal data of the riders, which we include in the prediction model. And based on all those variables, we can estimate the personalized energy expenditure. And also based on this information, we can really predict the amount of energy they need. And you mentioned blood variables. Indeed, it's also a very important factor for us, which is a variable which we track various moments in the year. So we try to at least each season, so 4 times a year at minimum, to see the blood variables. And also we take those into account in the nutritional approach and the nutritional guidance of the riders.
In that, of course, it's very interesting for us to see, since we're at the LOEWI podcast, how does LOEWI support your nutritional strategy when it comes down to tracking the progress, but also when it comes to micronutrients in general?
Yeah, LOEWI is indeed an important partner for us, so we're very happy to work together with you. And yeah, as we already said, personalized nutrition is trending and is the new future, and LOEWI is part of that, and for us of a great support by analyzing the biomarkers of our riders and on a personal level throughout the season. So LOEWI in that manner gives us unique individual development algorithms, and due to all the data of the analysis, we are able to predict trends, which ultimately gives us that performance advantage, which is crucial for us.
Fantastic, yes. Now, we of course don't have that many people that tune in that do a Tour de France race or even a single tour every day. So I guess what would be really interesting for some of our listeners, for some people who are a little bit more on the semi-professional or just, hobbyist side, sort of what are the standard mistakes that you see, probably even among tour riders, but also with hobbyists when it comes down to nutrition, where as a pro nutritionist, you just want to say, don't do that, stop doing that?
I think in the end, and that's maybe the most boring answer I can give, but in the end, it all starts with a healthy basis. So healthy basic nutrition. And if your basic nutrition is in place, that's already the most important factor for being healthy, feeling energized, and starting energized to your bike ride. But then when on the bike, I think the starting intake of nutrition in time is also a very important factor. So often you see hobby cyclists starting with eating and drinking after 1 or 1.5 hours, but actually you should already start after 15 minutes with sipping your drink and also having the first bites of your bar or sandwich or banana, just whatever you prefer. But starting in time, especially and mainly for the longer rides, is an important tip, which I would like to provide hereby to the hobby cyclists.
Yeah, I can just underline that as well. I think it was 2 weeks ago that I was exactly what you described, doing the not eating for an hour and a half, and then at 2.5 hours, the bonk just hits you, the glucose is completely depleted, and there's no way of catching up anymore, and you're just going to end up slowing down, and your heart rate's up here, and your power is down here, and it's just, there's no recovery from that, right? There's no getting back from that. It's incredible. So good tip, like that. When it comes down to preparation of a longer ride, are there some foods that the pros tend to avoid, or that also hobby cyclists should generally avoid?
Well, products to avoid, I think during a ride, the focus is always mainly on hydration and on carbohydrates. And I think that is, of course, with a reason. So we do avoid products that are really high in fats or in protein. We do use some protein during race, but like just in small amounts, and we prefer to have the pre-cut type of protein such as PeptoPro. So we really do focus only on the carbohydrates and try to avoid the fats and proteins in that manner. And they also slow down the uptake of glucose, which is also something you prefer not to do, of course, especially when doing high intense training or at moments when you really need the carbohydrates. That's not a side effect you wish for. So
for sure. You're talking about training right now. We've talked a little about race days. Is there a difference on what the athletes consume in a day or in a week on a training camp in contrast to a race week? Is there something that you say we as nutritionists try to do different because they don't have to perform at their best? It's just about building up muscle?
Yeah, there is some difference indeed in seasonal situations. So starting the season, the intensity is often a little bit lower. So also for nutritional intake, that's an important factor we take into account. So in intensity and the intensity of training programs, there are indeed seasonal variations, which we include in our nutritional approach. And besides, I think what we do often is use the training periods also for the rider to really get used to the products we use, and to also use those periods for training with the products and also simulate race situations. So I think those are indeed factors we look into, but in the end, the focus is still on carbohydrates during training and on fluid, so hydration. But during training periods, we always often, riders also prefer sometimes to have just normal foods or home-baked banana bread or a normal banana or rice cake. So there's a bit more variation in that manner in products. And also we stimulate that because during race periods, the variation is limited, of course, because we use bars and gels and isotonic drinks, but there's not an endless amount of types we use. So so that's something we do also stimulate, but we also really try them to really train with the products.
Right, because of course you want to know what works for who and who not, because it is in the end personal preferences. That some people can digest some things better than others, and some people enjoy certain drinks more than others, which brings me back down to personalization. How personal are the personalizations you do? You said that already the chefs are preparing different meals for everyone. So is it really down to each single dish that people might be served differently?
So what we do with personalization, we do for each rider we have in race situations we do, or not for each rider, but for most of the riders we do personalized plates, which means that we really recalculate we try to predict on best possible way what the rider needs to consume during the different stage days or during a Grand Tour. And then afterwards, based on the real data, we try to recalculate as good as possible the needed energy intake. So, and what we have is our cooks in place, so they are really on the ground, possible to able to measure the right amounts for each rider and make it really personalized for the individual rider, and thus that really contributes to better performance in that manner.
When it comes down now to supplements, for example, is there a need, you would say, for these professional athletes to take in supplements because they need so much vitamins and minerals that they can't take in through the food, or is that something that's just optional for professional athletes?
Yeah, it really depends also on the rider, indeed, on the time of the year. But we always work on like a good basic nutrition, and supplementation is indeed part of top sport, but indeed on a really personalized manner. So that is also why collecting the data and the blood analysis are so important as well, because what we aim for is not to supplement while it's not needed. So only where needed we do the supplementation specific for that rider and that situation. Yeah, what also depends a bit is moments like when a rider goes on altitude. That's a moment when we, for example, look at iron supplementation. When there's sickness, we look at different supplementation, but always tailored for the specific rider and the specific situation.
Fantastic, exactly. Because in the end, you don't want to over supplement. I guess too high vitamin D levels are not good, just as bad as too low. So yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's all about the personalization, indeed. Yeah. Now, just sort of out of personal interest, in a lot of other sports, we see that different diet styles have always been gaining attraction in the last few months and years. Yet somehow in cycling, keto diet will never catch on. The entire field, I think, is still running on carbohydrates. Is that something where you think that will ever change? Or are cyclists so energy driven on carbohydrates that will probably never come?
Yeah, I think indeed cycling, but actually the most sports are mainly, but especially cycling indeed. It's so much about the energy management, and carbohydrates are such an important energy provider for the body, especially in performance. So I don't see that changing in the coming period, and I think also in the long-term period, carbohydrates just stay a very important factor and energy provider for cyclists.
I think a lot of hobby cyclists, including myself, are very happy to hear that, because nothing's better than the coffee and cake excuse. I just need a few more carbohydrates.
Yeah, that is indeed a nice moment in between a longer ride, right?
Absolutely. I think it's part of the cycling culture as well, and being able to have that with a halfway good conscience is definitely nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Joline, thank you so much for answering all these questions. At this point, I think it gave us a really good insight in how you manage to get the best out of the athletes from Team DSM. I wish you best of luck for the upcoming season. We'll follow closely the results, and a big few races coming up, so very excited for that.
Yeah, us as well.
At this point, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to this episode of the LOEWI podcast. If you want to find out more of Team DSM, you can do that on their Instagram or, of course, on their YouTube channel. Thank you for being with us, Joline. Thanks for listening to the LOEWI podcast. Until the next time.